been dying to get back on the air here. Just before the break, I said I wanted to go to Memphis, Tennessee. I've never been there, the home of Graceland. This guy has written in, Shaq, he says, Oklahoma is Graceland. No, it's not, jackass. Graceland is at 3717 Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee. So I had to get that straight, Jim Barker. Welcome to the program. How you doing on a football Friday, Coach?
Fantastic. So much going on. It's fantastic.
Yes, buddy. Blue Jays Dodgers, when I mentioned it to you in August, did you actually think it was going to happen, my team against your team?
You know what? I didn't, but here we are. I gotta tell you, listen to the first hour and Kevin saying the thing about heart. When the Dodgers go through and don't lose a game, and to say they don't have the heart that the Blue Jay, I guess it's very fan. That's a very fan thing to say, maybe, but. Because I've made a really tough decision. I'm going to make the bet with you, and I'll take the Dodgers, and you can have the Blue Jays. But with that being said, I'm going to cheer for the Blue Jays. I've not been in Los Angeles in 30 years, and even though I went to sleep as a 10-year-old listening to Vin Scully and Jerry Doggett and Don Drysdale on the mound, I go back a long time with that team. I don't live there anymore. I not only changed cities, I changed states, and I changed countries. And then I wake up yesterday or the day before, and I see where Carney talked to Trump about doing a bet, and Trump won't return his call because he has no control over who's going to win this. So he's not going to, So you know what? I'm cheering for the Blue Jays. I am going to cheer for the Blue Jays.
Well,
I think it's great for them, and this is where I live now, and the city
you're
is
living
vibrant.
There. Yeah, hard not to get swept up in this.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I got to ask you, Coach. I got to ask you this before we get to football. Was reading a story in the break about Dave Roberts saying they're ruining baseball with the payroll, $509 million payroll. How much pressure is on a guy like that when you're expected to win? Like they are.
It gets to a point where it's not even a factor because they make so much money that it's kind of like the whole betting thing with the NBA. The hardest thing about that, like if it happened, like how can a guy making 120 million, play a 5,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 or card game and cheat somebody? It just I don't know. The money gets so great and it's so big. It used to be the head coach. As early as the 90s, the head coach always was the highest paid person on the field over the players. That's never the case now. Andy Reid's the highest paid coach in the league. He makes $20 million a year. And, that would be a middle of the pack player. So it's completely changed and gotten so out of control. It maybe is different in how you handle them, which makes it, I think, harder for some of the older coaches in dealing with the kind of money you're talking about. These guys are making. They're signing $400 million, $500 million contracts. It's a different deal. So I understand what Dave Roberts is saying. But to me, it's almost become like a video game for coaches and things because the players are they're in their own world, a world that Dave Roberts isn't in anymore as a former player.
And if you lose, he's not worried about his next meal. By the way, somebody named John Barker writes that he says, your little brother is still rooting for the Dodgers, just so you know. From
there
John
you go. We have a family rivalry then.
Right. Of every level of football is playing right now, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Where is your focus?
Well, it's on Hamilton and Ottawa at 7:30 tonight. That's Hamilton needs to win. Ottawa, the game, all those guys have their bags packed. They're trying to get home by Sunday. So, Hamilton's had a bye week coming into this in a game they have to win. If they don't win this, then they don't belong in the, they don't deserve to have a home field. I'll tell you what's been interesting to me, and you kind of just glossed over it quickly, and it hasn't been discussed, is Winnipeg basically resting 8 players. Now, if either BC or Calgary were to lose, they would stay in the West.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't you think you'd want to play and potentially stay in the West since no team has ever crossed over, unless you feel, wow, we're going to have a way better shot playing Montreal and Toronto than we are playing, BC or Calgary, and then Saskatchewan. So again, it's just been odd to me. All the talk's been about Winnipeg selling out every game, and nobody has said they're not even trying to stay in the West. It's almost like they had a meeting and said, listen, we want to cross over. We can't go say that yet, and nobody's talking about it.
Well,
So
I would, but this is part of why I'd never have fit in with the media, because I'm good with Mike O'Shea. You do what you're going to do. I mean, it looks exactly like what you're saying, but I just don't doubt the guy. But what I will say, I think you saw me say, this is the first time since 2019 that they haven't hosted a playoff game. He's sitting there weighing the pros and cons. We don't know what their health situation is. I know how it looks, but that's got to be what it is. He's like, the best thing is resting these guys, and then we'll pick up I don't know what he's thinking. I just don't doubt him, is my point.
Well, that's fine. You shouldn't. I've sat in that chair, and I understand what. And he's saying, "What's the easiest way for us to get to the Grey Cup in Winnipeg?" And he's saying, "We're going to be away anyway. I would rather play Montreal and Hamilton than BC and Calgary and then Saskatchewan." So that's what he's saying.
You're saying it without saying it is what you're saying. Rob in Las Vegas is watching, and he says, I don't recognize half of the Bomber lineup against Montreal. Eric in Vancouver writes, and he says, beating Montreal at home is not easy. Look, Jim's got it right. I don't like to criticize referees. I don't like to criticize coaches because I've never done it in football, right? So, but you have, so it's totally fair with you. Coming from the fourth hole is going to be hard no matter what. Yeah.
It also goes to what we talked about last week. What makes this such a fascinating game is they're going to play next week. There's a good chance if Hamilton wins tonight, they're playing next week. Montreal and Hamilton and Winnipeg. So Winnipeg, rather than show anything, rather than be able to even philosophically, Stanley Bryant's not playing, Oliveira's not playing. Philosophically, they can't be the Winnipeg Blue Bombers with the guys not playing that are not playing. So now it makes it much more difficult for Montreal to prepare for whatever that playoff game is going to be all about. They're coming in with a week off where Montreal, should Winnipeg be able to beat them up a little bit in terms of physically, they're playing them in a week. It's the fascinating thing we talked about last week actually happened, and yet nobody's talking about it. So it's, when you mentioned today about Caleros not playing, I said, that's the first I've heard, and it was like you glossed over it like it was nothing. And to me, it's a huge thing that this team is making a decision that we're going to rest everybody, and we know if we don't win, we're playing a team that has to win, that we're going to be crossing over. And they're saying, I'd rather go play those two teams in the East than play these two teams in the West.
Which is really saying a lot. It's very interesting because with Montreal, you assume they're going to win Saturday at Winnipeg. That would mean their quarterback, Davis Alexander, has never lost. He'd be like 11-0. And you'd rather go play him in his park than stay in the West.
Because he's due. You're right.
Yeah,
you're absolutely
right. That is
right.
Yeah. Just for fun, Jason in Red Deer says, why are the Riders starting Trevor Harris? And I'm guessing because he didn't play last week would be my guess. They want to knock some rust off here. Oh, my God, Matthew DeBuck, stop. Coach DeBuck's watching in Fort Lauderdale. He says it's maybe all about the betting. Stop, Matt. No. You got a game to worry about tonight. Don't go stirring this up.
This is not the week to talk about that, Matty. Come on, man.
I know.
I'll see you tonight.
About
gambling in the CFL when the NBA is. You don't need it.
He knows what he's doing. Listen, you go get ready for Shambhadan Madonna tonight, Coach. This is your biggest game of the year. I'll see you tonight at Bud Tight Field, 7:30 kickoff. Anyway, 7:00 kickoff. Um, who is Saskatchewan's biggest threat to winning a Grey Cup?
BC. I think it's BC, and again, having Harris maybe play a quarter or play something. To me, he's going to be at home. I don't know who's playing, whether their offensive line. I'm sure they kept that intact. The one thing you don't do, and if he's doing this, this is really stupid, is play your starting quarterback with backup offensive linemen. I mean, with Don Matthews in the preseason, whenever Flutie was in, the offensive line was in. If you want to play three quarters, guess what? The offensive line was playing three quarters, and they didn't have a say. And that's the way it should be. So they better protect Trevor, because I guarantee you they don't want to have that bye week thinking they're going to be going in with Jake Mayer as their, and I think Jake's a nice, yeah, but they don't want to have to do that. So again, that it surprises me a little, but my guess is they know that they're anticipating BC being their team. So to be able to give them some formations and be able to do some things and just give Trevor a look and that kind of thing, I understand that. I really
Sneaky
do.
good game of the week. Yeah. Sneaky good game of the week is actually Calgary at Edmonton tonight, because Calgary needs to win for a shot at second. And Edmonton, they got 7 wins. I pegged them for 5. They've overachieved in my mind. But they're all saying in Edmonton that they're going out to win tonight. And nobody's going to be watching because of the Blue Jays. It should be a good game.
They're sitting Boyko. They're sitting Curly Gittins. They're sitting quite a few players, which surprised me. Because I know, knowing Mark, I mean, how big would it be for them to finish the season at 8-10? That's huge. That would be huge. So maybe those guys really are hurt. I don't know.
They must be. But they've got Cody and they've got God. That's all we need. That's all we need. Aaron Rodgers says it's not about revenge Sunday night when the Steelers play the. I can't even say it with a straight face. What do you think about that game? That's the game of the week in the NFL.
Yeah, it's obviously it's because the NFL has a terrible week this week. I mean, the only game that has any interest to me is the Bears and the Ravens, a team that's won 4 in a row against a team that should be good and yet seems to be tanking. And but that's it's just a bad week in the NFL. But the Green Bay game, I mean, anytime a player comes back, especially when you played, he has a chance to become one of, I think it's 5 players that have beaten all the teams in the league. Obviously, he hasn't beaten Green Bay because he played with them for so long. But I know when they made the decision to move on from him, it wasn't like something where he was happy about it. I'm sure he would have rather ended his career in Green Bay. So for him to go in and show LaFleur and show the fans and that, you know what, you made a mistake. I still got it in me. And I'm not a huge Love fan, Jordan Love. I'm not a huge fan of his. I'm not. So like I said, it's an interesting game because of that element. And that's about all. I don't know. The games this week are just, I mean, the Giants and the Eagles. I mean, the Giants, what are they? Who knows? And the Eagles are
I know.
falling a little, but they're just kind of boring sounding games.
Okay, well, you know what? You're right. And the thing is, I'm not going to talk any more about it because all I heard on Sports Talk all week was people are not talking about the Dolphins here at all. They're talking about the Hurricanes. But then the spats between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and the Jets owner. And I'm like, oh, my God, is that all you guys can talk about? But the games aren't that good. So I'm going to go back to the CFL because the fans have questions for you regarding that. Jason in Red Deer says, I love you, Jim. But how is BC the Riders' biggest threat? The Riders beat BC both times this season and lost both times to Calgary. I would say their biggest threat is the Stamps.
Okay. I would rather face Vernon Adams at this point than Nathan Rourke. And that's as simple as that. I think the BC Lions are a much different team now than they were early. When they, I don't know, they went through a whole bunch of problems on defense, and they've added those players on defense we talked about last week, the 2 interior linemen, Levi Bell and the Samoan from Utah. And then they've added And that makes Betts a better player. They've added TJ Lee to that secondary. So their offense was never a question. And Nathan Rourke is playing as well as anybody. Is he the MOP? I kind of tend to agree with you that that Bo Levi has taken a team with a worse defense and put them in position to be the division champion. Uh, I think he deserves a lot of for that, but and I think obviously Davis Alexander missed a ton of the season, and the number one ability, as you know, was availability, and he didn't have that this year. But for a guy to go through and now he's going to be he ain't 11-0. He's going to be 7-0 this year as the starter. You know how I feel about that. That's
Yeah, oh yeah.
so he's 7-0 as a starter. Two of them are Ottawa. Can you count those? I mean I don't know. So yeah, the MOP is a tough one this year. I think Nathan Rourke wins because of the Canadian bias, potentially. I mean, he deserves it too. He deserves it. I mean, I think it's down to him and Bo Levi. I think that's who it's
Well,
down to. And Davis
that's why they have a vote.
Alexander. Davis
Oh yeah,
Alexander on the
sure,
outside. I mean,
sure,
you
sure,
look at
sure, sure.
most
Well, here's the
outstanding,
thing
the
about
guy hasn't lost.
Bo. I don't know how well you know him. You've gotten to know me pretty well. People tell me we don't get along because we're too much alike, and I don't know. I've never met him, and I still don't like him. But you guys wouldn't vote for him last year because his team missed the playoffs, even though we led the league in passing. And it's like he's come back and said, "Oh yeah." To use a Cody Fajardo line, F you, just watch. Now he's got him clinching
I
first,
voted
and
for
he's
him.
still leading the league in passing, and he never missed a game. So it's like he needs a chip on his shoulder, and I love that because so do I.
Yeah, yeah, and Bo Levi's competitive. I know him from the TSN, and we worked together in the playoffs because his teams didn't make it to the last year. Didn't make the playoffs, so he worked every round with us. So I've gotten to know him well, and through Scott, like I say, Scott Milanovich. I've just gotten to know the backside, the side that what does his coach say about him, and he's really developed himself in this offense and has put this team in position to be one game out from going to the Grey Cup. And there's a lot to be said for that. And he's just got that competitive way about him. He's when you compare a Bo Levi with Trevor, Trevor's won a lot of games. Trevor's done a lot of those things you want somebody to do. But Trevor sometimes it seems like talks his way into stuff. Where Bo Levi, you don't hear him do that kind of I don't know. I just
Not anymore.
I have a lot of respect for Bo Levi.
Bo, well, we all like to think we grow up, and maybe Bo is growing up. I don't know. He's not with the same guy he was 10 years ago. Whether that mentally, physically, it looks like he is, right? So
Yeah.
it is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun after this weekend. Even this weekend's going to be fun. Jim, thanks for this. We didn't get to college, but we got months ahead to do that. Thanks for this. Enjoy the game.
Go Jays!
You betcha. Go. Okay, Blue Jays, let's play ball. We'll be right back, everybody, with NFL deal or no deal for Pump Jacks Cathedral and Pump Jacks Weyburn, Silver State Sports Entertainment Network, and Game Plus.